warnings from the intelligence community on the number of Americans who are trying to join ISIS overseas. And according to leaders at the Homeland Security Department, as well as the Department of National Intelligence and the FBI, authorities are not able, they say, to find a clear pattern for why Americans are being inspired to join this terrorist group. So that might make it a lot harder to find these people before they sign up. Ohio Republican Mike Turner is on the House Intelligence Committee, and he joins us now. Congressman, great to have you here with us in New York. Thank you for being here. So we were just chatting in the break, and we're in the middle of the Boston Marathon bombing trial, which should be a case study for figuring out how we can find these people. What have we learned from that in terms of these finding out who wants to join ISIS, and what have we not learned?
Now, this is very difficult. Obviously, the terrorist groups and organizations are using 21st century communication techniques for what are really medieval tactics. And as we look to these organizations, though, we need a global strategy because we cannot pursue isolated events such as Boston, Paris, the internet solicitations without actually going to the coordinated efforts of these terrorist groups and organizations. That's how we get to the root of this, and that's how we affect it. All
right. So that sounds to me like you want to find out who's going on certain websites, who's tapping into, who's searching for certain things that might tip us off to them. Can we do that?
Well, certainly there needs to be a coordinated approach also in our intelligence sharing and our intelligence coordination. But the focus really should be from who they're trying to communicate with, not just the isolated people that are reaching out to them. It should be the leadership. I mean, this administration really needs a global strategy that targets those that are soliciting, those who are looking for, those individuals who want to join their organization. And from that, we can affect terrorism.
But, when you look at the Tsarnaev case, for example, they had tripped some wires, especially the older brother. The FBI had spoken to them. They had, a little bit of local law enforcement issue, the older brother as well. But the problem is that we don't have a way to attach this global fight against ISIS to local law enforcement. And in these cases that I'm reading about, the 30 people who have been taken in the last 18 months, in some cases a parent flagged their own child and said, I'm concerned that he's going to run off and join ISIS. But it feels, when we listen to Director Comey of the FBI, he's saying we've got investigations in all 50 states. It doesn't feel like there's anything gluing them together. We hope there is.
And that's where we have to go back through the terrorist networks themselves. And that's where the administration needs to be more diligent in fighting the global terrorist networks, because they're communicating with someone, the global coordinated terrorist groups. And those are where we need to attack. We'll never be able to catch everybody who goes online and who seeks out bad people.
But should we be able to speak to people at mosques? Should we be able to take passports as they're doing in Great Britain and in Europe? Are we doing enough to follow up on these leads? Because my fear is that something's going to happen. And we'll tell the same old story. Oh, turns out he had, caused disturbances at his mosques. His uncle was very worried about him. And once again, we won't know.
Well, certainly there are leads that should be followed up on. And even if you look at the Paris attack, they were on our no-fly list, but yet they were able to travel throughout Europe. And that's why we need to be able to have greater information sharing, tracking these individuals down, tying them to the groups and organizations, and trying to diminish their overall logistic capability. And that certainly will have an impact. But people need to be diligent. If people have information, they need to call the FBI, just as some active, parents have done.
Yeah. So if you see something, say something, and let's hope we get some better coordination in our intel, which I know you're working on the committee. Thank you very much, Congressman. Good to see you today. Thanks.